Welcome to our podcast, When Life Gives You Lemons. I'm Kevin.
And I'm Palmy. We consider ourselves disability advocates and intend to highlight some disability issues and things we find interesting that we frequently encounter when we're out and about. Also, some history on disability that we find interesting. This year, we're going to include more of the interviews of the people that the disability affects. We hope you enjoy it.
Well, hello there, and welcome to our podcast, When Life Gives You Lemons. I'm Kevin.
And I'm Palmy. Welcome to 2026.
What a year it's been so far.
It's been pretty crazy. Our life has been up and down.
It's been really hectic.
So we are back a little later than we thought we were going to be, but we're here. And our first topic is traumatic brain injury. We're going to refer to this as a TBI. Is there a reason why we chose this injury?
Over social media, I had been talking to some people, and they suggested this as a topic.
I think we have an interview also with somebody that has experienced it, don't we?
Yes, we do.
For a second interview in conclusion with this one.
Part 2 of this episode is going to be an interview with the person who has the traumatic TBI.
We're going to try to do that with most of the discussions we have this year, is try to have personal experience added in, not just the definition and outline of what the injuries or the disease is, but to have a personal definite, conclusion on someone's life and how it affects their lives. So we're going to try to do that with everything we look at this year.
Sometimes to get a more complete picture, you really need that personal perspective.
Right.
Not just stuff that's written down.
It makes it more interesting and it's more personable.
Sure.
Yeah. Okay, so let's go ahead. The definition of TBI, again, that's traumatic brain injury, is an injury caused by an external force disrupting normal brain function. Can result from a blow, a jolt, or penetrating object. Classified as mild, moderate, or severe. And then, Kevin, you're going to tell us the symptoms of it.
Right. And the first symptom is, of course, they're all physical. Headache. Am I going to read them all?
Yeah.
Nausea and vomiting. Dizziness. Fatigue. Balance problems. Sounds a lot like ataxia.
Yeah.
Sensitivity to light or sound.
And these can be confused with concussions also. So another symptom of it is cognitive. So that was physical. So the second symptom is cognitive, which is confusion, difficulty concentrating, memory issues, feeling slowed down.
And then you get into the emotional symptoms, which irrationality, anxiety, and mood changes.
And then it affects their sleep too. Trouble sleeping, falling to sleep, sleeping more or less than usual. And then it's classified, there's several classifications for TBIs, moderate to severe. And so, and it's based on...
Yeah, these were all the mild physical, the symptoms for mild.
Moderate to severe.
And now we're going to talk about the moderate to severe symptoms.
So physical is the loss of consciousness, minutes to hours, worsening headaches, repeating vomiting, seizures, dilated pupils, clear fluids from nose and ears, weaknesses or numbness, and loss of coordination.
The cognitive behavioral symptoms include profound confusion, slurred speech, agitation, or unusual behavior.
And then severe outcomes on a moderate to severe TBI is coma and vegetative state.
Then the end stage of that is brain death.
Right. So let's talk. I have a story. We're talking about these are the symptoms. So when I lived in Hawaii, I rented out. I had a condo and I rented out several of the rooms. That's kind of what you do in Hawaii because the rent is so expensive. I had 2 extra bedrooms in my condo, and so I rented them out. And one of the women that rented from me she did have a TBI, and she had a car accident, a severe car accident. She had been in a coma, so she was considered severe. She had a severe TBI, and she had been in a coma for like a month, I think, and then had come out of the coma. And she experienced all of these. It was really hard to deal with her because she was very erratic. She had a lot of anxiety. She slept weird hours. We also had another person that lived with us, and the other person, she was obsessed with how many showers the woman took, and like she was taking too many showers, or she was just eventually she had to move out because she just was, I could see where living with someone like that would be very, very hard. She had difficulty concentrating. She'd asked us to turn off the TV at certain points. She asked us not to play music. And all this, she said, was because of the TBI. So, and she had been living in a halfway house type treatment center for a long time. And this was her first move out, was into a normal living situation. And I think when she moved out of the rental situation, I think she might have went back because I think she found that it was just too difficult to live in a normal setup like that, where people did their own things, and she just found it very hard to live like that. So I think it's a lifelong situation. So the most common causes of TBI are falls, leading cause, especially in children and older adults, vehicle collisions, cars, motorcycle, bicycles, and pedestrians, violence, gunshot wounds, domestic violence, child abuse, including shaken baby syndrome, sports injuries, football, soccer, boxing, hockey, skateboarding, and finally, military blast injuries, pressure waves, and shrapnel. So that leads us to treatments, Kevin.
For mild TBI, okay, I guess we're doing just like we did before, talking about mild TBIs. Rest, general return to activity, gradual return to activity, over-the-counter pain relievers, and monitoring for worsening symptoms.
Moderate to severe TBIs is emergency care, maintaining oxygen and blood pressure, preventing further injury, medications, anti-seizure drugs, diuretics to reduce swelling, coma-inducing drugs to reduce brain oxygen demand, surgery, removing blood clots, repairing skull fractures and stop bleeding, relieve intracranial pressure, and rehabilitation, physical therapy, occupational therapy, speech and language therapy, psychological support, and vocational counseling.
I'm sure a lot of the care for TBI is categorized as therapy and support in the aftercare, not the immediate care, but because it's probably said, I think a lot of people just have or develop fixations on things and don't cope well with
Normal life.
Footloose and fancy-free normies, if you will.
Yeah. She had a hard time dealing with anything out of the ordinary. If everything had to be planned, she wanted to know exactly when her bills were due and what day every week that we were going to do something, or if something was required of her, she needed at least a week's notice in advance to deal with it. And I think that's where a lot of in Hawaii, I don't know about over here because I don't know anybody with a TBI. Maybe that'll be one of the questions we ask the person, is if there's houses and homes like that where it's kind of like a halfway house. So you learn how to do these things before you're exposed to it in the real life, kind of like rehab, like my dad went through, where you're still getting therapy, but you're living a day-to-day life.
Okay. One of the reasons we're going to make this into a two-parter is so we have lots of time to talk about housekeeping, new season, new way of doing things. And I was hoping to get some of your opinions before we launch off into permanent changes, if you will. One of the things I was looking at during the off season was adding a web page. Right now, our web page is hosted by our podcast host, which has been fine. The only thing I don't like about the way that is we have to conform to everything as they design it. So we have absolutely no input as to what we put on the page, unless it falls into one of their categories or what the page looks like. So I thought we'd design a page as we had before, as many listeners as we do now, and go from there. Sometimes, believe it or not, a description just does not capture the image as well as the picture does. For example, our very first episode was about wheelchairs. We had some darn weird descriptions to read, but absolutely no pictures to post. So I'd like to remedy that, especially when we get into things like the future of some of the treatments as they see them. For example, every year we do an update on Neuralink and all that. It'd be nice to include pictures of things that we have a hard time describing, just so we're clear about these kind of things. What else can you think of, Palmy?
I think that covers it.
Okay. Right now, the fan mail feature is part of our podcast host service. So as long as we're at where we're at and it looks the same to you and fan mail is an option, just bear in mind that's only for U.S. people. If you don't reside in the U.S., they charge you for standard messaging to the U.S. So you can always save a few bucks and send us email and say you would send it fan mail, but they charge you to do it. And we'll treat that just like it was fan mail. Fair enough. If you don't think it's fair, let us know. We've been relying quite a bit on the two social media inputs that we get the most are from the Accessible Go community site. So I want to give a shout out to Accessible Go. They've, from the first year, been both a very valuable resource and been very good to us by allowing us to contact their community members and ask questions. The other area that we started last year was a Facebook page, and that's kind of spotty. There's a lot of non-English speakers on that page. That might be why it's so spotty. They don't really get into the topics that we talk about unless it's something they recognize in English. For example, the condition or disease they may have. They're not really into the awareness of the other diseases as much as others are on the Circle site. So, for future reference, our website is and will always be www.whenlifegivesyoulemons.net. That's the domain we own. And right now it's good, points you to our podcast host where our website is hosted. In the future, if we change it, it will still be the same address. www.whenlifegivesyoulemons.net. And that about does it for this week. Unless you have something else to add, dear.
Nope.
Okay, we'll see you next time, folks.
I'm looking forward to the interview, though.
So, as we always ask at the end of our episodes, what do you do when life gives you lemons? Dear, do you want to answer that?
You turn it into lemonade.
Exactly. Or in your case, sourdough, tasty sourdough.
I was at a vendor selling my sourdough, and the lady asked me, why don't you have lemon sourdough? So I'll have to add that to my I do a lemonade cherry sourdough. So maybe I'll have to keep doing that on an ongoing basis, just so I don't get asked that question on and on.
Yeah, it might not be a bad idea for your business.
To at least have one lemon product in there.
Yeah.